All right, I know you've seen that viral spaghetti recipe going around TikTok, YouTube, Instagram. I kept seeing it. I knew I had to try it. So that's what we're gonna be doing today. I'm gonna be sharing my version of that viral $1 million spaghetti. All right, so really quick, here is an overview of the ingredients we're gonna need. It looks kind of like a lot, but it's not really a lot considering the deliciousness that we're about to make. So you're gonna need your favorite pasta sauce. This one happened to be on sale. It's just the Ragu Simply 8. I love the simple ingredients in there. You can also just use a regular can of tomato sauce because we are gonna doctor it up a good bit. So we're gonna use 1 green bell pepper. We have 1 yellow onion. We have 1 pound of ground beef. If you like Italian sausage, you can also do just half a pound of ground beef and then half a pound of Italian sausage. Our family just really doesn't prefer the Italian sausage. So we're also gonna need some seasonings. Also have some Italian seasoning here. And we may add a couple other seasonings as we go. Then we're gonna need some minced garlic. I'm just using our jarred kind. We have a little bit of cream cheese. Then we have a bunch of different shredded cheeses back here. This is just some leftover Monterey cheese that I had that I want to use up. We have some shredded Parmesan and some shredded mozzarella. Then we're also going to be using some 2% milk. That is my chicken base. We're going to make some chicken broth, a little bit of flour, half a stick of butter, and then obviously we're going to need some spaghetti noodles. So let's go ahead and put together this $1 million spaghetti. Right, first we're just gonna get our veggies chopped up. We're probably only gonna use about half of this green bell pepper and about half of this yellow onion. All right, we're gonna get started on this sauce. I'm also gonna have our Alfredo sauce going back here, but I'm gonna show you them one at a time so it doesn't get confusing. Just gonna add a couple tablespoons of extra virgin olive oil. Next one in the pan is our peppers and onions that we just chopped. And also I have my pot going over here. That's gonna be for our spaghetti noodles. All right, our pepper and onion is starting to brown up a little bit. So now we're gonna go ahead and add in that minced garlic, about 1 tablespoon. Toss that around. And then pretty much as soon as you add in that garlic, we're gonna add in our ground beef because we don't want that garlic to burn. And now we're just gonna cook it down. All right, so we're gonna season our ground beef mixture. We are gonna add that Italian seasoning. Just gonna sprinkle some in. I was gonna use that Cajun seasoning, but I tasted it. I just bought it today and it's a little salty. I'm afraid with the Alfredo sauce, I don't want it to get too salty. So instead, we're gonna use this Dash salt-free. It's just the onion and herb. Sprinkle some of that in. And then lastly, we're just gonna add a little bit of paprika. And of course, I'll have this whole recipe typed out in my description box. So that way you don't have to memorize any of these measurements. All right, our ground beef is pretty much cooked. I'm just gonna use a paper towel and soak up a lot of that grease in here. It doesn't really have too much grease. I just don't really want all this extra grease in our meat sauce. It's kind of personal preference. And now we're just going in with our favorite marinara sauce. Or like I said, you can just use a can of tomato sauce. Since we added all those seasonings and the peppers and onion and garlic, you really can get away with just using a can of tomato sauce if you prefer. All right, now I'm just gonna give it all a stir and let this kind of simmer just until our noodles and our Alfredo sauce is finished. Once I get it simmering, I'm also gonna give this a taste and make sure we don't need to add any seasonings or anything else to our meat sauce. Looks really good already. All right, so first for this lightened up Alfredo, I have about 3/4 a cup of chicken broth here that I just mixed up with my chicken base. And now I'm also adding about 3/4 a cup of milk, a little over. I'm just gonna mix this together, and basically this is gonna do the same thing as like a heavy cream would in our Alfredo sauce, but it's just a little bit lighter. It still has so much flavor though. All right, so I have half a stick of butter. Just gonna put it in the pan and let that melt down. So next to that, we're gonna add a little bit of minced garlic. And we're also gonna add 2 ounces of cream cheese. So our cream cheese is continuing to melt down. We're gonna add in about 1 or 2 tablespoons of flour. We're gonna let that cook just a couple minutes. The flour is just gonna help thicken our Alfredo sauce since we're not using like a heavy cream in this. Let that go just a couple minutes to cook out that raw flour taste. And next we're just gonna come in and pour in that milk mixture. And then continue to whisk everything together. Next to our Alfredo sauce, we're gonna add about a cup to a cup and a half of this shredded Parmesan cheese. Now it's just gonna melt down and start to come together. It'll thicken up and it'll be really smooth and creamy. So I'm just continuing to whisk our Alfredo sauce back here. That cream cheese and shredded Parmesan has continued to melt, starting to become that creamy, smooth texture we're looking for. I'll give this just a couple more minutes. All right, we got our noodles drained. I'm just gonna add those back to our pot. Now I'm just bringing over that Alfredo sauce. We're just gonna pour it right over our noodles. And now we're just gonna stir these noodles around in this Alfredo sauce. And this is gonna become our bottom layer for our spaghetti. So good. Everything nice and coated. I don't think it's gonna stick with all that butter, but I'm gonna give it a spray just in case. Now we're just gonna pour in all of our Alfredo and noodles. Spread everything out, and I can already tell this pan is gonna be full, y'all. All right, we're gonna keep most of the cheese on top, but we are gonna do a little cheese layer right in the middle. So like I said, this is just some leftover cheese that I had. I think it's Monterey, it could be sharp cheddar. Either way, it's gonna be really good. You can use whatever cheeses that you want. Do a little of that and a little bit of mozzarella. Next, it's time for that delicious sauce. I think we're gonna have just enough room, y'all. Pour it on. Spread that out all over top of our noodles and cheese. I'm gonna make sure we cover all those noodles completely so they don't get any dried out pieces in the oven. And lastly, we're just gonna top with that extra cheese. All right, and lastly, I'm just gonna sprinkle a little bit of lightly dried parsley on top. Since this is dried parsley, I'm gonna put it on ahead of time. That way it can kind of rehydrate. And I already have my oven preheated to 350. So this is going in there for just about 25 to 30 minutes. It really just has to melt all those cheeses. And y'all, I cannot wait to taste this. All right, sorry if y'all hear my washing machine in the background. Y'all, does this not look delicious or what? I cannot wait to dig into this thing. You can see the layers down there, our Alfredo layer. I just know this is gonna be so good. So I'm gonna let this sit here for a few minutes and I'll be right back, y'all. It'll be time to try it. Do y'all see this? All right, y'all, let's give it a try. Actually, this is something that I warmed up. I already tried it as soon as it came out of the oven. I had to go do mom stuff. Now I'm gonna try it again on camera so I can really explain to y'all how it tastes. The thing that stands out the most to me, believe it or not, is it's super creamy. It's super rich, has that rich flavor and texture, but the peppers and the onions and the garlic really stand out. Like this tastes like a really fresh take on spaghetti, if that makes sense. Normally when I make spaghetti, I don't add anything. I just add the sauce and the meat, and that's pretty much it. But I love the peppers and onions added in there. I think that is such a good touch. And of course, you can never go wrong with a layer or two of melted cheese. Alrighty friends, thank you so much for cooking along with me today. If you have not subscribed to my channel already, I invite you to do so. I share new, easy recipes every single week, all with a little southern flair, so if that's what you're into, I would love to have you stick around. Let me know if you've tried a version of the viral $1 million spaghetti, or let me know if you're gonna try my version. I hope you're all having an amazing week, and I'll see you real soon in my next video. Bye y'all.